Hey, good morning everybody. Welcome back to One Seed, One World. So we are having some beautiful weather here today. Got a very lovely steady hard rain last night, which actually knocked down a few of my tomato plants, and I need to get them tied up in certain areas. But after this weekend, we are going to be hitting temperatures that range from like 91 degrees Fahrenheit up to almost 100, and the heat index might even be over 100 in some of those days, and that's supposed to last for the next week and a half. So I thought this would be a good time to talk about what hot weather like that does to your tomato plants and some things that you can do to help your tomato plants get through that kind of hot weather. So your tomatoes like temperatures that are ranging between 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit most of the time. Once it starts getting above those levels, it will start going into survival mode, which isn't going to really help you get a lot of good produce. First thing that's going to happen is the flower blooms are going to kind of start to shrink up, and if the weather stays too hot for too long, they will eventually just drop off without producing any fruit. This is because the plant is trying to conserve its energy to get through this blast of heat. And this is when, I'm not talking about like a day or two of over 90-degree weather. I'm talking if you're having a long batch of where it's in the high 90s and just, you know, suffocating you because of all the heat. So if you are looking at a long stretch, this is what it can do to your plants. It will go into survival mode. Blossoms will start to dry up, drop off. And if you've got fruit already on the vine, it's not going to ripen. It will just kind of stop, especially if it gets up near 100 degrees. So, what are some things that you can do to help your plants make it through this kind of hot weather? There's multiple things that you can do to help them get through. If you are early in the season, or at the beginning of your season where you haven't planted anything yet, you can choose varieties that are more heat tolerant. Cold and wet on my neck there. Look on your description in your seed catalogs, or whether you're looking online or whatnot, but there are different varieties that can tend to handle those kind of heats better. And this might be especially for you guys that live like in the Southwest, like, you know, Southern California, Arizona, Texas, you know, some of these places where it is hot like this all the time. There are varieties like Heatmaster, Phoenix, there's one called Solar something or other, but they tend to be more tolerant to these kinds of heats and are a little bit more forgiving. So if you're just first starting out, you know, look maybe for those varieties if you live in those kinds of areas. The next thing is mulching and watering. You want consistent water because the plant is going to be struggling to take up enough water to keep itself hydrated during these hot sections of time during the summer. And so you want to make sure you do consistent watering, and you know, check your soil, make sure that down, you know, if you stick your finger in the soil down about 1 inch, see how dry it is. If it's just completely dry, dusty, whatnot, you want to make sure you watered. Try to keep it somewhat moist. You don't want it like sopping wet, puddle, like sitting water or anything. Your tomatoes aren't going to like that either. But if you give it a consistent watering, that's going to help them get through these hot sections of time. The other thing is mulching. If you mulch around your tomato plants, this is going to help keep the soil at their base cooler, and it will help conserve water so that maybe you don't have to you know, water as much, because if it's just bare soil, it's going to evaporate a lot faster and you're going to end up having to water more, or if you don't get to it, your soil is going to dry out more and cause your plants to struggle more. So a thick layer of mulch, whether you want to do like shredded wood chips, you know, that natural shredded mulch, even stuff like straw, grass clippings. Just be careful with grass clippings because it can have a lot of weed seeds in it, and that, you know, could potentially cause other problems later. But if you give yourself a good thick layer of mulch, that will help keep the soil moist, reduce your watering, and keep the soil cooler to help with your tomatoes. Then maybe a final option is using a shade cloth. You know, I mean, when you look at your seed descriptions and plant descriptions, you know, tomatoes, peppers, and those kinds of things will always say that they need full sun. Now, full sun means that they need 6 to 8 hours a day of sun. But if you are in a spot that gets no shade whatsoever, in the summertime, they're probably getting 14 hours of sun, which sometimes can be a little bit too much, especially if you are in temperatures that exceed 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you are able to plant your stuff where they get good morning sun and maybe some dappled shade or scattered sunlight throughout the afternoon during the hottest times of the day, that can help going forward. Or you can try doing a shade cloth that kind of covers the tomato plants. You'd have to set up like a, I don't have something here to show you. I do have a shade cloth, but it's still in the box. So, so you just have to kind of imagine with me here. But if you set up like a couple of stakes or whatever, and what you want to do is leave your shade cloth open to the east side. So your plants are going to get all that morning sun early on in the day, but then as the sun travels over, have like a 50% shade cloth that can help block a lot of those rays and keep it a little bit cooler for your plants. I'll put a link down below for where you can look at some shade cloths on Amazon, which is where I got mine from. But that can help some things too. You don't want to like shade them out all day long. They do still need light, but you can kind of help block some of that, you know, mid-afternoon sun for a few hours to reduce the, you know, the hardcore effects of that high heat. One thing that can happen with your tomatoes is if you've got fruit already on the vine and it gets that hot, they're going to stop ripening. Again, this is the plant protecting itself. It's conserving its energy to save itself overall. So it's going to stop putting energy into ripening your fruit. So what can happen is if you've got some that are semi-ripe on the vine, you know, they might have some red or orange or whatever color you're growing on the outside. If they stop the ripening process, they will sit there and the insides might not ripen. Or if you've got green tomatoes, they just won't turn red. So another thing you're going to do, if you're going to have like a long stretch of one of my chickens was making a weird noise. All right. So another thing that you can do if you're going to have a long stretch of temperatures that are 90 degrees and above, and your tomatoes are going to, you know, stop that ripening process, and you've got some that are partially ripe on the vine, pick them, take them inside, and let them ripen inside where you can maintain the temperatures better, and that will help you save some of your fruit. The last thing that you want to keep an eye on when you are running into these long-term hot temperatures is pests and diseases, because the plant is already going to be in a more weakened state. It's in survival mode, so it can be more susceptible when pests or diseases hit. So just kind of keep an eye out. But if you're doing some of these things, the mulching, the watering, the shade cloth, you know, planting areas, all those kind of things will help keep your plant stronger to survive a long stretch. And I know that like in the US, they've predicted that this summer overall is going to be much hotter than normal. And it looks like ours is already going to be getting here since we've got a 2-week stretch of 90 to 100 degrees coming up. So I hope that information helps, and I hope you guys are staying cool in your neck of the woods this summer. And if you got any questions or comments, or maybe what you've done that has helped you in the past, if you live in a hot area or have experienced a hot stretch of time during the summer, put it in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. But I appreciate that you're here hanging out again with me today, and we will see you again soon. Have a great day. Namaste.